On this week's episode, we'll be discussing what it means to be young, gifted, Black, and female in 2025. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Doing Justice Brings Joy. This is our fourth episode, and I'm so grateful for your support and so grateful that you have taken your time out to be with us this Friday. I'm going to start out with a report to you, an update to you about the Eaton fire. But first, I just want to send my prayers, love, and support to the people of San Diego. There currently are two fires that are raging through San Diego right now: the Hughes fire and the Border fire. The Border fire is just that. It's a fire that's engulfing the American side of the Mexican-American border, but fires don't know anything about these geographies, and so we just want to pray that the Santa Ana winds lessen and that they're able to contain that fire. I have concerns about, with the border being closed, that we might have a real tragedy at the border fire that can erupt. I spend a great deal of my time every February in San Diego with my friend, Mary Scott Knoll, who puts on one of the premier fair housing conferences in the nation. I checked on her and she is currently fine, but as another fire has broken out, I'm sending her my particular prayers, and I will be out there with her this February, and I will be doing, as I promised, a live report from California about the ravages of the fire. As you all know, I was very distraught last week, very distraught. I shared with you the reports about the Eaton fire. I shared with you this historical nature of Altadena, California, in the history of fair housing movement, in the history of, in the Black history of the power of wealth transference, the impact the Eaton fire had on home ownership, not because of the significant home ownership rate in Altadena. The destruction of all those properties had an economic impact on all of Black America when it comes to home ownership. 81% of African Americans, Black people in Altadena, owned their home. 81.5% of the homes of the Black people in Altadena owned their homes. We talked last week, we saw a news report last week that documented the historical significance of Altadena. They highlighted that Altadena was one of the first communities in America that fully embraced the Fair Housing Act, and that Altadena has suffered from historic redlining. And they talked about in that news article last week, and I shared with you in my news report last week, that Altadena suffered from historic redlining, and that west of Lake Avenue was redlined in Altadena. We share together our grief over the deaths of what was then last week known to be 6 residents of Altadena who were African American who died in the fire. We talked about Miss Delsey, who was a Black starlet in Hollywood during the 40s and 50s when that was an unknown thing. We talked about the fact that a former nuclear engineer, aerospace engineer, had passed. We shared their stories and their pain. And I'm angry today. I'm angry today. I'm angry today because I have to share with you that 17 people died in West Altadena on the wrong side of the tracks, as we would say here in the South. I had suspicions last week that have been confirmed in news reports this week about the causes and effects of the Eaton fire. But 17 people died. And we will never know. We will never know. We will never know if those deaths could be avoided. But I know that the chances would have been greater if they had received equal treatment under the law from the county government in Los Angeles. And I'm not making this up. I'm going to read to you a NBC News report. All 17 deaths in Eaton fire were in a zone, listen to the language, where evacuation orders took hours to arrive. And this is the story. Within a half hour of a fire igniting on an Eaton Canyon hillside, within a half an hour of a fire igniting on an Eaton Canyon hillside in the afternoon of January 7th, thousands of residents' phones buzzed. Thousands of residents' phones buzzed in eastern Altadena with a warning from the Los Angeles County. Beware! Within 40 minutes, a dire alert. Leave now! But the neighborhoods in western Altadena did not see the same urgency, as evacuation orders didn't arrive until early the following morning, more than 9 hours after the Eaton fire began. Do y'all hear me? Do you hear me? This is NBC News out of Los Angeles, and they reported this one day ago. By then, it was too late. All 17 people who died in the wind-fueled fire were west of Lake Avenue, a major corridor that runs north-south through Altadena. They include an 83-year-old retired Lockheed Martin project manager, a 95-year-old who was an actress in old black Hollywood, and a 67, oh my God, Lord Jesus, and a 67-year-old amputee who used a wheelchair and died with his adult son who had cerebral palsy. 15 of the deaths occurred in an area where the first evacuation order wasn't sent until, get this, 3:25 a.m. on January 8th, in the middle of the night, in the dead of the night. But the other folks on Eastern Side received their notice within 40 minutes of the fire igniting on Eaton Canyon. Oh, Danny, you're going to have to calm me down when you get home. Lord Jesus. The discrepancy, this ain't Stella saying this. This is NBC News in Los Angeles. The discrepancy, the difference in treatment, that's me. The discrepancy, that's their polite word, between West and East Altadena is spurring questions. You think? Among local officials and residents about the timing of the emergency alerts and whether earlier warnings might have saved lives. I've got some additional questions about why was there a discrepancy at all? Why did they treat the residents' lives and property in West Altadena differently than they treated the lives and the property of those in East Altadena? We got to ask that question out loud. We don't need to sugarcoat it about timing of emergency alerts. Why were they treated differently? And let's not start with the excuses. Town Council Member Connor Cipolla, there was not a lot of time to do anything, but our notification system should have been going off long before they were. It's obvious by the destruction, it failed half our town. It failed the half of your town that was 57% people of color. It failed the half of your town that was Black, brown, and Japanese. We need to be telling the story. We need to understand why the half of the town, their lives had no value, their property had no value, but within 40 minutes of the blaze on the Canyon Hill, those white lives in Eastern Altadena were saved. I hope y'all are seeing, scrolling across your screens, a disclaimer that the opinions you are hearing and seeing are mine and mine alone, but I don't care if you hear them. I'm going to tell it like it is. I'm angry. There's 17 people dead because their lives were not valued. Their lives didn't matter. 9-hour difference in notification. And then the type of notification was also different. And we talked about that last week. So I'm not going to go over that again because there's too much going on that we need to talk about. And I've got a couple of guests, that I want to talk about some of this theme of, do we matter? Are we seen? Do our voices count? And what it's like to be, I'm an old soldier on the battlefield, but what is it like? What is it going to be like to be young, gifted, Black, and female in this environment? That's coming up after I complete this report to you on this news update and news report. 15,000 residents were destroyed. They say the fire is now 91% contained. I guess so, since there's no more houses and people for it to burn. Another LA County supervisor, 2 LA County supervisors introduced a motion calling for an independent review of the emergency notification systems. While the county evaluates its responses following any disaster, LA County Supervisor Catherine Barger said Wednesday that she wants to accelerate an analysis for the wildfires that have killed more than 24 people and destroyed over 15,000 structures in Los Angeles County. I want you to understand that the racial composition of Los Angeles County, Black people make up just 8% of that. But they represent more than 25% of the people who have died, of the people who got notice. They're already trying to say, I know that on the west side, the older part of Altadena, it was far more concentrated. A lot of homes. We need to find out what happened, but I do know that the fire was traveling fast. It traveled fast, but the notice was slow. If you were on the east side of Altadena, you received notice within 40 minutes of the blaze. But you didn't receive notice on the western side until 9 hours later. That doesn't have anything to do with the fire traveling fast. That has to do with the county disregarding the lives of the people in West Altadena. This supervisor went on to caution that additional notifications may not have saved lives, but said the victims of this disaster deserve our transparency and accountability. You can't know whether they save lives or not, but we do know that there's a higher probability of saving lives if you got 40-minute notice than if you got a 9-hour notice. Her motion will be voted on at the county supervisors meeting next Tuesday. I'll report to you what happened next Friday. And the LA Times did a report on the delayed evacuation notices. They've been doing some excellent reporting. In the statement, the county's coordinated joint information system said it could not immediately comment on the factors that may have led to the deaths in the fire and that a comprehensive review will take months, because it will require combing through and validating the call histories of the fire, interviewing first responders on the scene, interviewing incident commanders, and searching and reviewing our 911 records, among other essential steps, including feedback from all relevant sources. That work may also require a third-party entity to ensure the integrity of the investigation. It does not take a whole lot of steps to figure out why one side of town got notice and the other side of town didn't. That's a question that demands an immediate answer. So the county used a lot of methods of notification. They did the electronics alerts, are one method for warning residents, but the county added that it also uses door knocks, which did not happen in West Altadena, as testimony in our responses last week told us. Patrols with loudspeakers did not ride through West Altadena, as the residents in those neighborhoods told us. And media coordination, which did not reach out to stations that cater to the interests of people in West Altadena. She hunkered down with her two children and their father on Olive Street on January 8th when she got a text message after 3 a.m. from a nearby friend saying there were flames in her backyard. She checked the Watch Duty app, which offers allegedly real-time updates taken from first responders' radio broadcasts, but there were no warnings that her neighbor might have to evacuate. She looked outside her rental home and saw flames. A few minutes later, she got an alert ordering an evacuation. She told her landlord, who did not receive a notice, and then her family scrambled in the car and left. They made their way out of the neighborhood, joining the stream of cars. She saw no firefighting vehicles, no police cars, and heard no sirens. It said she realized that the fire was moving very fast in the hours before the evacuation, but she thinks authorities should have sent alerts much earlier. She was looking at the app. She was watching the app. The app told her she did not have to evacuate. Somebody's got to answer for these 17 deaths. Somebody's going to have to answer for these 17 deaths. I'm just so angry. I tell you, this is my issue. We are not letting those people die in vain. We are not going to let them die in vain. I hear our president is in California overlooking the Palisade fire, but he hasn't come to offer sympathy to the families, the 17 families who died in the Altadena fire. I'm going to list their names of the names of the victims. I'm not going to tell their stories this week. And then I'm going to go and introduce you to one of my favorite people in the world, Miss Danny Calhoun. But let's take a moment to think about the 17 victims who died in the Eaton fire west of Lake Avenue. Anthony and Justin Mitchell, Erlene Louise Kelly, Victor Shaw, Rodney Kent Nickerson, Rory Sykes, a child star from Australia, just 32-year-old. Randall Crawdaddy Moyd, Mama D. Curry. We talked about her amazing career last week. Arthur Simonu, Charles Mortimer, Kim Wieniecki, Shifan Shao, Annette Rossili, Jeffrey Takayama, Carolyn Burns, Edwin Cridlin, Evelyn McClendon, and Diane Webb. May God bless and keep your families. We will seek justice on your behalf. At this point, I just want to take a minute I will be seeking justice on their behalf. I'm committed to bringing justice, to making sure their lives mattered, their community matters, that we matter, that is people for property, that is ordinary people, that you don't have to be extraordinary to matter. I'm going to ask Mark if he has available the rest of my topic this week is around what it's like to be young, gifted, Black, and female, and in 2025, and we're going to be talking about the different problems, the misogynoir that Black women face in our society. Mark, are you able to pull up that slide, that graphic that I gave you earlier? And if not, if you could introduce Danielle into, and she and I'll just have our chat. Hey, Danny.
Hi, Miss Stella. How are you?
You can see I'm fired up.
I see, as you should be.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm gonna need you to zen me out of the show, but
I'm ready. I'm ready. I got us some breathing, some affirmations, a light stretch. I got you.
All right, that's what I'm looking for. So, Danny, you're one of my favorite people in this world, and I am interested in how are you feeling? What are you how are you preparing? How are you seeing yourself, framing yourself as a young, gifted Black woman in 2025? Who are you, Danny Calhoun? And how are you prepared for this struggle ahead?
Ooh wee, that's a big question, Miss Stella. Who am I? I am Danny Calhoun. Use she, her, and they, them pronouns. I am a Black, queer, womanist, feminist. I am a person who is committed to racial justice, queer liberation, disability justice. And I think the most grounding thing for me right now is staying grounded in that commitment to liberation, staying grounded in my values in liberation, in that belief that my liberation cannot exist without the liberation of everyone else. And so if I'm going to fight for my freedoms and my liberations, I must also be willing to fight for the freedoms and liberations of everyone. And so I think in this moment, I try to ground myself in gratitude, for the privileges that I do have, for the access that I have, for the history and information that I have, because I think I am very lucky, as a young person, to still be able to be in space where I get to have conversations with respected elders like you and with so many others that I've been able to get to know better these last 3 or 4 years. I think I feel really thankful to have a family that I can, most Black folks in America can't say that they can trace a lot of their lineage back. And I'm thankful to be able to know that on my dad's side, we know we're descended from American chattel slavery, but we can go back pretty far and kind of and see the resistance that lived in my family on that side. And on my mom's side, I'm descended from Marooners, Jamaican Marooners, who, if you know the story of the Marooners, they they said, we're not doing that no more. And they overthrew that plantation and they went and said, we're going to make our own stuff up in these mountains. And so I think I'm thankful for that too, to have access to that history that so many of us have had stripped from us purposefully. And I think it's really hard because so much everywhere is telling everyone to fend for themselves. So much is telling people that the best thing that we can do right now is to just worry about yourself and let everybody else deal with whatever comes to them. And so I think reminding myself to stay grounded in community and to stay grounded in the work that came before me, in all of my ancestors, in the work of our movement elders, feeling grounded in all of the works that our movement elders and our brilliant theorists and all of these things that, like, I think I say often, reading is so important, and going back, and it's easy to feel like you're the first person to feel something. And it's easy to feel like you're the only person that's going through something and the only person that's experiencing what you're going through. And I think especially as young people who tend to be cut off from history, often it's easy to feel like I'm the only person that's felt like this. I'm the first person that's felt like this. This has never happened before. And then you read and you realize so many people have been in so many similar situations over and over again, and that people before you were in similar or worse situations, that they had less access, that they had less autonomy than what you are given. Well, and let me not misspeak, because we all have autonomy, that is our human right, but that we were given less space to exercise that. And those folks still made a way. I'm only here today because my ancestors made a way and continued.
You talked about that you read a lot. Share with our viewers some of the books that you think can prepare them or comfort them or assure them in this, empower them during this kind of year of transition?
Mm-hmm. I'll maybe go authors. I'm not as
That's even fine.
yeah, but I would definitely recommend folks read folks like Octavia Butler,
Mm-hmm.
reading Angela Davis, especially a lot of what she's written on carcerality. I would recommend reading like Bell Hooks and James Baldwin, folks like that who are really who dig into kind of what it means to really love and be there for each other and support each other. Even like reading anything that you're reading from the Black Panthers is probably a good start. Any understanding any of that history of like where Huey P. Newton or where Malcolm X or any of those folks were talking, Assata Shakur, and just like going back and reading, especially like our poets, I think are so important because it's not just reading folks' nonfiction work. It's also going back and engaging with poetry. It's also going back engaging with the nonfiction and the fantasy and the those different ways that our people have always found a way to express through art. And marginalized people have always found a way to express and to still speak through their art, even when they were being silenced. And so I think going back and just trying to read all those different perspectives and like realize that a lot of the stuff that we're grappling with right now is stuff that folks have grappled with before. Like even just going back to get a basic understanding of stuff that there's a lot of words that we use now that most of us don't even know the definition of it. I think most people hear the words socialism or communism or Marxism and immediately think of the way we've been propagandized to experience those words, and it immediately sounds scary. But so many of us aren't actually given access to what do those words mean and what would that actual structure look like, and what do the people who are trying to practice these values today, what are they accomplishing? And it's on purpose. They don't want us to know that there's other options, right? Capitalism and imperialism requires telling us this is the only way, and this is the only way and the right way. So it makes sense that it's not super accessible to find options for other ways. But I think that's why now more than ever, we have to keep seeking them out and trying to find folks who are willing to say, we're going to try to do something different. And just because we're doing something different than what's happening right now doesn't mean that it's something that's never been done before. So
tell it.
You can do something different than what we're doing and it not have to be reinventing the wheel and creating some brand new perfect society from scratch. So going back to those elders, to those artists, to those thinkers who have been working on that theory and building up that and practicing it for generations is important, because there's people who have started doing that work and we can pick up where they left off. And so I think that's really important. And I think as a young person, that's something I'm always trying to do, because I am not immune to any of that stuff that I'm saying happens for young people. There's been plenty of times where I'm like, I'm the only person in the world that's ever felt this despair. And then I realize, girl, you're not even the second or the third or the 10th, the 100th, And it's not to say that we shouldn't engage with what we're feeling, because we shouldn't like gaslight ourselves or tell ourselves we have no reason to be upset, because we do. I think there's so much going on right now that we should be angry and we should be disillusioned and we should be frustrated and disappointed. And it's important that we let those feelings move us to action and not leave us in a state of despair and hopelessness. And so that's why it's always so important to go back to community. Because
let me ask you how this week, how this week and because as a young, gifted Black queer woman,
Mm-hmm.
things happened this week
Yeah.
that directly impact you and your future. How are you feeling about that? And what are you and your friends saying and feeling as you watch this unfold?
I think there's a lot of feelings. There's definitely a lot of anger. I think there's also a lot of sorrow and sadness. There's also a lot of feelings of, I think in a lot of ways, queer folks feel a bit gaslit because for a long time, queer folks and especially trans folks have been sounding the alarm. And so I think especially trans folks and especially disabled folks have been sounding the alarm about what is coming, have been sounding the alarm about the ways that all of these executive orders that we're seeing and all of this stuff we've been saying for years, that this is what's coming, that this is what was coming. And I'm thinking so specifically of activists and folks that I know that have been talking about this since 2020. And have been saying this is what's coming. And I think a lot of times folks respond to either trans or disabled folks and queer folks as y'all are being dramatic and acting like being over dramatic and acting like no one's coming for that, or you just need to be happy with what you already have, and you've already got enough. Stop trying to make things about y'all, without being able to recognize that we're trying to tell y'all that if they're willing to come for trans folks, then the next thing they're going to come for is all queer folks. And then the next thing they're going to come for is all folks that aren't men, right? And so we're seeing that already, that in these first couple of days, they're immediately doing all of the stuff that for a long time, young folks, and especially trans folks, disabled folks, and women and femmes have been saying, like, this is what's happening, this is what's coming, this is the playbook. We're getting told we need to be quiet and stop dramatizing and stop being so critical
and emotional.
Yeah, we're being too emotional, we're being dramatic, we're looking for attention, right? We need to just be happy with what we've got. We should be thankful that we have the little bit of rights that we've got. And if we keep speaking up for ourselves, now we're shoving it down someone's throat, right? But we see how quickly it went from trans folks aren't allowed to live and act and be as they are, and how quickly it also became, we're coming for folks' reproductive rights, we're coming for your bodily autonomy. And so many trans folks specifically and disabled folks specifically have been trying to sound this alarm of, y'all are okay with our autonomy and our rights being stripped because you think it won't happen to you. But I think we've all heard that poem, right? Of first they came for, then they came for, then they came for, then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak. That is, we're living in that right now.
Right now.
So many folks. I'm even thinking about all of the people who have been championing, who have been asking the last 2 or 3 Democratic presidencies and cabinets to codify some of this into law.
That's right.
And I'm thinking about the number of folks who campaigned on saying that they would and then never did. And so now we're seeing day one, this new administration comes in and is like, well, I'm just going to sign everything away all at once. And so I think there's also a lot of frustration because there's so much that people kept telling us wasn't possible, that people kept saying, oh, well, the presidential office doesn't have the power for that, or, the people in power don't actually have the power to do that. And now we're seeing, as soon as this guy takes power, he's utilizing every ounce of power he has and doing whatever he can. So it's possible, clearly. And so I think we're seeing a lot of anger and despair and like feeling a lot of abandonment at the ways that people were very willing to push us to the side and tell us to just hush down and be quiet because what we had to say wasn't convenient for them at the time.
Say so.
But now that it's in our faces, everyone is acting shocked and surprised. And how could this have happened? And that's not to say that I don't understand for a lot of people why this feels shocking or why this is disillusioning for them, because it is. But I think that if people listen to Black women, to Black trans women, to queer folks, to disabled folks more, we maybe could have seen this coming, because a lot of people did see this coming. And so
Zanny, you talked about so much, and you're just so right. But the frustration and the anger of our communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to focus in on Black women
mm-hmm.
and how we're expected, right, to put on our capes,
mm-hmm.
our superhero capes, and save America.
Mm-hmm.
And when we just visually experienced the complete and utter dismissal and disrespect of a Black woman, you give her 100 days to run a 4-year campaign, and then blame her for not getting over the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
And then our alleged allies are reassessing and blaming the canaries in the coal mine who told you this was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you were the one saying, sit in the corner. You were the one saying, pipe it down.
Mm-hmm.
You were the one saying, dumb it down. And now you want to blame us because you didn't realize he meant what he said, but he wrote it down in a 900-page book.
Mm-hmm.
And he's following that book page for page.
Mm-hmm.
And you're shocked and you want to blame us because we didn't shout loud enough to make you understand.
Mm-hmm. And in a lot of ways, and I think when we're talking about the idea of misogynoir, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is no perfect, the same way there's no perfect victim, there is no perfect messenger for this. But Black women and Black femmes, especially, there is no right way to say it. We could be as honey sweet as we want, and I'm calling you in, and hey, I just wanted to, with love, I just really need us to sit with this, and they're not going to like that. And we could be loud and bold and confident and say, you need to listen. We know what's happening. This is why, and they're not going to be happy with it. And we could try to ride the fence, and they're still not going to be happy with it, because ultimately, when someone is committed to misunderstanding you, and when someone is committed to not listening to you, there's no yelling loud enough that will make them consider a voice that they don't think is relevant to them. And so I think that's why now more than ever, like, it's important for people to maybe take a lesson from this. And also, we know this is nothing new, and folks ain't learned their lesson yet. And so I think that's why it's important now more than ever when we talk about like leaning on community, building out those community, like building out your community connections, those community support systems, things like that, finding folks that you have at least some level of shared values with, and finding the folks that you can struggle with and be in this with them in that struggle. Because also everyone's not going to be perfect. And there is a lot of stuff that we're all getting taught, that we're all internalizing all the time. that is really hard to like undo all at once. And it's not going to happen all at once. But where it is going to happen is in loving community, in supporting community. And so that's why we have to, even on the interpersonal level, we have to start to reassess and question and like be more critical within ourselves of like what internalized white supremacist, capitalist, imperialist, like what ways am I internalizing that? And what ways am I policing that with others? And what ways am I cutting myself off from others or disposing of other people because of those ideas? And so that's why we have to be in relationship. Like right now, we have to be willing to be in relationship with each other. We have to be willing to have some uncomfortable conversations, and we should be able to find spaces to do it safely and respectfully and healthily. But we have to be willing to like grapple with this with folks, to get uncomfortable, to like push and be pushed by those that love us, and to be willing to create those systems of community care that say, even if we don't 100% agree on this, I love you and you deserve to have your basic needs met. I love you and you deserve to be supported. And everyone has to be able to hold boundaries for their safety and to have their own discernment. But being able to do that in the small scale, being able to start doing that, being able to start like, how can I stop policing myself based on, oh, am I trying to like quiet myself because I don't want to be, the aggressive Black woman? No, I'm allowed to be a confident Black woman. And even if I am angry, I probably got a reason to be. Just like when white men get angry, people are like, well, what did y'all do to make them angry?
Okay, I want to thank you for that statement, Janny, because that's been the burden of my generation, right? We were the first ones into the corporate boardrooms. We were the first ones into nonprofit leadership space. We were the first ones representing our communities in traditional spaces and places. The entire community rallied around my classmates because 20 of us as Black Americans were attending UNC Chapel Hill, right? And we were the first group to be able, the first cohort, right, to be able in that space. And there's a burden with that of, and they're always saying I'm too loud. They're always saying I'm too passionate, right? They're always saying, but the one thing they don't say, and you know this, is that I'm not prepared.
No,
they can't say I don't have the facts and the stats to back up whatever comes out of my mouth. But they had to learn that the hard way. They had to learn that the hard way. But there was a time I was being interviewed for this major position in this temple of power in DC as a researcher. And I thought I had an ally in the room. We had been in the trenches fighting for communities for 20 years, and he, as a white male, had been elevated to the leadership power in there. And I thought out of the 3 people in that room that I had an ally in him. And he says in the interview to the other people, I'm in the finalist group. Stella, you're known to be bombastic and opinionated. How do you think you're going to be able to adjust to this academic environment? And then he did a drive-by, shot me, right?
I
And then
mean,
he did a drive-by and said, oh, by the way, I won't be able to finish this interview. I'm headed to Capitol Hill, and bolted out the door and left the other two people with the clear instruction, the clear implied instruction that she won't fit in.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And even, and we were they never intended for us to fit in. And I think that's another thing that I think hopefully more people are noticing now, is that even when you completely fall in line, even when you do all of the things they say you're supposed to do, you're still not safe. That safety you think you're getting by assimilating or submitting or saying, fine, I'm going to hold myself in, I'm going to police myself at all times, I'm going to be an inauthentic version of myself, I'm going to make myself smaller so that I can be easier to stomach, so that I can be easier to contain. You could do all of that, and at the end of the day, you're still just not quite gonna be right. You're still just not quite gonna fit, because ultimately these systems that are asking us to assimilate into them were never created with us in mind.
Danny, so we've got 4 minutes left.
Okay.
And I need you to
Zen
center us out of here.
All right. Well, let's take a grounding position then. Get comfortable, get your feet flat on the floor, roll your shoulders back a little bit, maybe. Feel free to close your eyes if you'd like. And we're going to ask everybody to take 3 big, deep breaths. Inhale in through your nose. Exhale out through your mouth. Do 2 more big inhales and exhales on your own timing. And as you're breathing on these exhales, just notice without judgment what parts of your body might be asking for more breath. What are you feeling? Where are you feeling it? Without judgment. Maybe breathe into those areas that are asking for a little bit more. We're going to do 1 more inhale, and on this inhale, we're going to bring our arms up with us above our head. Still in your chair. And think of stretching all the way up. Maybe you do 1 hand at a time. And on your next inhale, grab your left wrist with your right hand. And the exhale, and just lightly pull to the right. Don't go too far. Just take 1 deep breath there. Inhale back to center. Switch, grab the other wrist. And pull lightly to the left on your exhale. And inhale that back up. Next exhale, you're going to twist. So just think about looking over your right shoulder. You can put your hand over top of your chair if that helps. Inhale back to center. Exhale the other direction. Inhale back to center. And this time, give yourself a big hug. And next, I'm going to give us a couple of affirmations. Feel free to repeat them out loud or to yourself silently. I find and create safety and love in my mind.
I find and create safety and love in my mind.
Mm-hmm. I create safety and love in my body.
I create love and safety in my body.
I am safe in this body.
I am safe in this body.
I love this body.
I love this body.
I'm thankful to this body for all that it's carried me through.
I am grateful to this body for all it has carried me through.
Mm-hmm. I will find and create safety and love in my community.
I will find and create safety and love in my community.
There's power in my community.
There's power in my community.
There is power in me.
There is power in me.
We're going to do one big inhale and release it. Mm-hmm. Now do one more big inhale together. Extend the exhale. One more inhale. This is the last one. Inhale your hands up. And on this exhale, use your voice, give it sound. Ha! Thank you, Ashe. The light in me sees and honors the light in you, Miss Stella, and in each of us here that are watching. I am because you are. I am because we are. And I thank you for giving me this time today, Stella. Thanks for folks that are joining us for taking some time to be in your body. And I ask that you just remember you can find moments of joy and safety and love within yourself. That is all within you. And you can also find and create that within your community. And that's going to be important now more than ever. Ashe, thank you.
And with that, thank you for watching. Doing justice brings joy.